Compared to a lot of people, I don't follow the news that closely. And yet, I'm certainly well enough aware of what's happening in our world right now to be very upset and distressed, like so many people are. And there are so many causes that are deeply upsetting. And so, when these times happen where I'm really feeling in my heart and pained about what's going on our planet, I often turn to the natural world around me. And yes, it does bring wonderful solace and peace regardless of the season. And certainly in times like now where it's springtime and much is budding and growing and it's wonderful. And yet lately at our home, there's been some news that hasn't been as positive that comes from the natural world. And I'm not talking about my two little ones who continue to carry colds, but rather I'm talking about a young male Junco. And for the last 5 days, he has repeatedly been banging on the windows of our house. And I feel so concerned for him. And it's been most every window. He's gone around the house on the first floor and the second floor and doesn't show any sign of letting up. And my heart goes out to him because he's putting in such effort and there's such resilience and determination, and yet he's only making it worse for himself. And it only is going to lead to further problematic outcomes. And I don't see how this goes well. And so this kind of description reminds me of another wonderful and well-intended creature that is just making things worse for itself. And on our continued trajectory, I don't see it getting any better. And so something needs to change. That animal I'm talking about is humans. And despite our good intentions and so many wonderful qualities, contributions, and characteristics, like there's something about how we're going about the world right now that just isn't working. And so I try and make greater sense of that. And so in some ways I start with the Junco and trying to better increase my understanding of why is he banging against this window. It turns out that it's not altogether uncommon for birds to do this. And one of the reasons is that they get very enamored in their reflection that gets mirrored back to them. And that actually seems to be resonant for humans as well. We get very caught up in our image, in our ideas, our egos, and our attachments and agendas. And we can be relentlessly in pursuit of these, even to our own detriment. And so that made sense as well. And yet, in this case, I actually think it's something else, and it's that he sees that reflection and thinks that it's another male Junco competing for territory and a mate, and so he is relentlessly fighting against what he thinks is the other, but is really himself. And this also feels apropos of humans, is that we can be so divisive and so caught in struggle and battle and fighting against who we perceive as the other, but really they're our fellow kin, they are our fellow humans, they are fellow creatures and part of our planet. And it's often in the name of power and pandemic and politics and money and materialism, which can seem so justifiable on one end. But on the other hand, what it is leading us to is greater separation and conflict and anger and injustice and intolerance, and the lists go on. When in fact we share so much more in common, that what unites us, besides just so much commonality in DNA and being of the same species and on the planet, is so much more. And furthermore, instead of fighting, we need to be rallying together, uniting to really address the issues and sources of so much struggling, not only for right now, but for what lies ahead for us. And so climate change would be a wonderful example of that. And so I don't have solutions for the Junco. I do think that eco-psychology offers, and our planet offers, some solutions for people to separate and change our trajectory, to stop being enamored with our ego and images and attachments, to step away from our fighting and divisiveness. As always, nature knows the way. And so today I just share with you an anecdote, a question in the uncertainty that I am in, that I think we are all in. And so that instead, how do we change the path that we are on so that the news that we are getting in the media years from now is one that is joyous and celebratory, that speaks to all the ways that we have come together. So I take heart knowing that so many of others of you are in this with me. And in the meantime, I send my very fondest and best.